So, are Catholics once a week vegetarians? And if so, why? We are going to explore this topic because that was the sixth most asked question among folks who Googled, why do Catholics dot dot dot? Actually, they asked, why do Catholics avoid meat on Fridays? But I figured, that's close enough. So, just so you know, I've already covered numbers 9 through 7 as we work our way to the most asked question. Also, later, I have some good news we could all use. Lots of good things going on in the Catholic world right now, which I am so happy to report that, especially here on The Good Place, where I focus on what is good in the midst of life's hardships. Life is not perfect, if you haven't figured that one out just yet, but it is worth living and living well. Hi there, I'm Kim Tisor. And when I was first in what was RCIA, but is now known as OCIA, to learn about the Catholic faith, I kept hearing about abstinence during Lent. And I kid you not, I thought they were talking about sex, abstaining from, I'm embarrassed to say that, abstaining from sexual relations on Ash Wednesday, Good Friday, and during the Fridays of Lent. Now, my husband, he ended up dropping out. I'm just kidding. But I had not yet heard of abstinence in terms of abstaining from meat. But alas, our faithful RCIA instructors impressed upon us not to intake the flesh of animals, meaning meat of mammals and poultry. Fish and other forms of seafood are okay, as well as cold water critters like frogs. But why even mention that? Okay, so according to the Catholic source book, from the first century, the day of the crucifixion has been traditionally observed as a day of abstaining from flesh meat to honor Christ who sacrificed his flesh on a Friday. Now, this practice lasted for centuries until the Second Vatican Council in 1966, when the church relaxed the rules. Although the church still encourages abstaining from meat on Fridays, I'm talking all Fridays, not just leading up to Easter during Lent. Many dioceses offer alternatives, allowing congregants to choose other forms of penance instead. And I think that's something that needs to be emphasized among new Catholics, that while you may eat meat on Fridays, if that's what you choose to do, you should be practicing some other form of penance. Penance, if you don't know what that is, expresses sorrow for wrongdoing and demonstrates our desire to turn away from sin and to turn back toward God. Now, some ideas you may want to incorporate into your Fridays include attend Mass on Friday, pray the Stations of the Cross, maybe give to the poor. How about pray the Divine Mercy Chaplet? These are just a few ideas. If you have others, please include them in the comments section. So, for the required days of abstinence from meat, it's worth noting that it's obligatory for all Catholics ages 14 and older. Now, you may be wondering, but what if I really like fish or I'm already a vegetarian? Well, I'm going to give you something very important to consider after this brief message from today's sponsor, yours truly. Hi, you may not know it, but when I'm not creating YouTube videos, I'm helping people select their final resting place at one of the most beautiful cemeteries in all of Southeast Michigan. Resurrection Cemetery is a Catholic cemetery that serves all Christians, providing lots of options from traditional ground spaces to beautiful mausoleums designed for those who want to be laid to rest above ground in either an urn or casket. Know that it would be my honor to help you, even if you don't live in the Detroit suburbs where I am. It's not uncommon to assist families who live across the country, especially those who are looking for a beautiful, sacred location for their loved ones' cremated remains. I can guide you every step of the way. If you want to know more, please feel free to contact me. My email address is in the discussion section below. Now, I want to share this screenshot I took, and I feel horrible that I didn't write down where I found this. It's possible it was from Catholic Answers, but I'm not sure. Just know I didn't come up with this. I'm very sorry that I can't tell you where I got it from, but it addresses the letter of the law. It says, the law dictates no meat, but the spirit of the law is sacrifice. For this reason, church teaching advises against simply replacing meat with an expensive seafood feast, as this would defeat the penitential purpose of the practice. The point is to give up a pleasure, not to exchange one indulgence for another. So consider eating more simple foods like mac and cheese or grilled cheese sandwiches, maybe even some vegetarian soups or pancakes with peanut butter. Got to get some protein in there. But what about if you're vegetarian? Again, consider the spirit of the law. You're already following the letter of the law, but maybe consider giving up something else like desserts and or if you're crazy. Just kidding. Or maybe you want to take it even further and fast a meal or two or even all day. Now, some of you may be familiar with Dr. James Dobson. He was an evangelical author who started the Focus on the Family ministry in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I used to listen to him every single morning on my drive to work. And if you hadn't heard, he actually passed away last month at the age of 89. But I recall hearing decades ago that he used to fast one day a week for his children. He shared in one of his parenting books that, quote, "My number one responsibility is to evangelize my own children. In the words of my dad, everything else appears pale and washed out when compared with that fervent desire." The urgency of this mission has taken Shirley, that's his wife, and me to our knees since before the birth of our first child. Furthermore, since October 1971 until early 1978, I designated one day a week for fasting and prayer specifically devoted to the spiritual welfare of our children. This commitment springs from an intense awareness of our need for divine assistance in the awesome task of parenthood. There is not enough knowledge in the books, not enough human wisdom anywhere on earth to guarantee the outcome of parenting. There are too many factors beyond our control, too many evil influences that mitigate against the Christian message. Even though Dr. Dobson wrote he fasted and prayed until 1978, elsewhere I've read that fasting weekly was a practice his wife Shirley continued for many more decades. There's certainly much that can be gained when we fast from food, freeing up time that can be devoted to prayer or good deeds. And there's a certain amount of self discipline that we acquire when we cut out meat or some other pleasure from our regular routines. Both help us to grow in holiness and closer to God, which, after all, is the point. Now, I want to share with you a few good news headlines from the week. First off, Sunday, the Catholic Church gained two new saints when Pope Leo XIV canonized Carlo Acutis and Pier Giorgio Frassati. St. Carlo Acutis was just 15 years old when he died of leukemia in 2006, and St. Pier Giorgio Frassati was 24 when he passed from polio in 1925. The canonization of these young men who were on fire for their faith is expected to have a profound impact on young Catholics worldwide. Well, mark your calendars. The Holy Father will celebrate his 70th birthday Sunday, September 14th. Our Sunday visitor is coordinating a spiritual bouquet for him that you can participate in if it's not too late. I'll include the link in the discussion section should you want to contribute a prayer. But if time has passed, here's an idea. Just go out with friends and family for prayer and pizza because Pope Leo is a Chicago native after all. Obviously, this will be his first birthday as Pope. And lastly, a movie about St. Maximilian Kolbe called Triumph of the Heart hits select theaters Friday, September 12th for 1 week only. Check your local theater to see if it's playing near you. Catholic News Agency has an interesting article that I'll link in the discussion section about why and how this movie came about. And it's directly tied to insomnia. Really, it's interesting. You need to read it. Hopefully, I didn't put you to sleep myself. If I did, who knows? Maybe that's what you needed. So you're welcome. You got to relax. The next video I do in this series of the top questions people Googled about Catholicism is why do Catholics baptize babies? I look forward to sharing more on that one. So if you would, please like, subscribe, share. I want to thank the Beagle 1956 for the recent $5 Super Thanks donation. That was exciting to wake up to. Every dollar certainly helps toward paying for software necessary to put together this little channel. Until next time, work toward becoming a saint. And Saints Carlo Acutis and Pier Giorgio Frassati, pray for us. Thank you so much for watching. God bless. Bye-bye.